I decide to record to start my book review, and my dogs decide to start barking, and they don't want to shut up anymore. And I banged on the window. They don't want to shut up. And I'm getting annoyed and mad and sad because I really want to talk about this book. Give them a second. Get out of their system. Okay. Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing my first ever book review on one classic, heartwarming, twisting book. It's one great book. Personally, I believe that it's one great book. It had such an impact on me. I felt like I had a connection to a lot of the characters, and I want to introduce you to this book. It's called To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This book won the Pulitzer Prize 1 year after it was published, and I want to say that, wow, it's such an amazing book, and I don't know, I feel like I'm honored to have been able to read it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit on the back, what it says here in the back before I get started. To Kill a Mockingbird, the unforgettable novel of a childhood in a sleepy southern town and the crisis of conscience that rocked it. To Kill a Mockingbird became both an instant bestseller and a critical success when it was first published in 1960. It went on to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1961 and was later made into an Academy Award-winning film, also a classic. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a movie that's based on a book. And I know I have, and personally, they've been so terrible. I haven't liked them. Maybe there was this one or two that I did like out of all the ones I did see. But when I saw the movie, there was small, maybe minor changes that the director made, but it was on a point. It was, I want to say, precise to what was in the book, and that was, one of the few movies that was based on a book that I've actually liked. Compassionate, dramatic, and deeply moving, To Kill a Mockingbird takes readers to the roots of human behavior, to innocence and experience, kindness and cruelty, love and hatred, humor and pathos. Now, with over 18 million copies in print and translated into 10 languages, this regional story by a young Alabama woman claims universal appeal. Harper Lee always considered her book to be a simple love story. Today, it is regarded as a masterpiece of American literature. Let me tell you a little bit about history about the book. It is a fiction, Southern drama fiction, not real. But this book was actually written based in the 1930s. I'm gonna say 1930s, 1933 to 1935, 36, around those. Those are the times where the main character of the book is, remembering. She's having a flashback to those specific years in her life. And if you do not really know your history, the Great Depression was going on in the 1930s, where a lot of crashes were going down, the money, Black Tuesday in October, so it was really, really bad during the 1930s. The United States had also just gotten out of World War I. I know the 19th Amendment was also passed, and the 21st Amendment. There was also a lot of injustice for Black men and Black females. I know that they weren't allowed to vote, they weren't allowed to do many things, it was a lot of segregation going on, whites here, blacks here, stuff like that was going on in the 1900s, 1930s, 1940s, around the time that this book is sort of based on, 1960s, where the book was published, around that time. Okay, so a couple of the main characters of the book are as follows. Jean Louise Finch, better known as Scout. She is such a little tomboy, someone who's always outside, climbing trees, trying to get hurt, playing with mud, playing with boys. She's one of those that, hey, doesn't matter to me. She doesn't like wearing dresses. She's always wearing like pants or something like that. And she is really smart. Her vocabulary is extraordinary. She was, taught by her father at such a young age how to read, how to write, the alphabet, different words, and that really had a great effect on her. When she first entered into elementary school, she was one of the only students that knew how to write, how to read, so she had to read for the other kids. So she was really advanced to a point that the teacher said, hey, you can't be doing that anymore, so yeah, that's a little bit about Scout. She has a brother by the name of Jem Finch, and Jem is her older brother by 4 years only. So when Jem was 4 years old, Scout was born 2 years later. Sadly, the mother died. Her name was never mentioned in the novel, but we can say she goes by Miss Finch, assuming by the fact that her kids are Finch. And her husband, Atticus Finch. Atticus is the father of both Scout and Jem, and he is a lawyer. He studied, law and stuff like that for a while before he went back into Macomb County, where they live, where the setting takes place, and, became a lawyer, became what he did. So he was the one that had a really big influence on the education of Jem and Scout, pushing them to read, to write, ever since they were born. He would just encourage, he had strong morals of it. The town that they did live in was really poor. It wasn't really something fancy, as like I said earlier, it was during, the Great Depression, the slavery, the whites, the blacks. So, girls really were like, hey, like, why are you smarter than me? It was kind of bad, but, he wanted to change that. Atticus saw all of the injustice, all of the inequality, that was within his own county, and he wanted to change it. Throughout the novel, he wanted to change it, and he does many things that you can say that he had an effect in history. He has an effect in this novel, and it's a really positive and powerful one, and and something that I look up to, something I can do, like, hey, something's happening in the world, just go ahead, go change it. You can do whatever you want to do as long as you set. Another character that we have is Calpurnia, their black cook. I am not being racist, I promise. It's just how they, said it in the book. Calpurnia is kind of the mother figure for the kids. I'm not going to say wife figure for Atticus, because, she's not really. But Calpurnia was really the mother figure for the kids. Calpurnia came into the picture when Jem was born. So Jem was brought up with her, the second mother, kind of. And then Scout came into the picture. And then when the mother passed, she was there to, support the kids, support Atticus, and she cooks for them, she cleans, she does whatever it is that they need, she helps them with whatever, she helps the kids with whatever they need, stuff like that. She's a really sweet lady, down to earth. She gets really along with the neighbors, but there's a lot of racism and tension within the county that she doesn't get along with specific people. I won't go into grave detail about that, but that's just a little bit, the heads up. Another character would be Charles Baker Harris, better known as Dill. Dill is a little boy that comes in the beginning of the novel, talking to Scout and Jem about how he can read, trying to show off, but little does he know that Scout was younger than him and she can read. Well, he was kind of like a little troublemaker. He became really, really good friends with Scout and Jem. You can say that they were like the three musketeers. always together during the summer. And he was from Mississippi, so whenever his mother would come down, he would go and he would hang out with the kids all summer. He would go back to school, then come back the following summer. Character would be Walter Cunningham. He's really not one of the main ones that stays throughout the novel, but he's one that affects it also in a way. The character that comes up into the novel happens to be the Radleys, and by the Radleys I mean Mr. and Mrs. Radley. Their sons, Boo and Nathan Radley, do have an effect to what happens in the novel. They're really distant, but when it comes to specific things, they were there. We also have Bob and Mayella Ewell. Bob was the father of Mayella, and there was a lot of conflict that happened between them and another one of the characters that I still haven't mentioned, and that one would be Tom Robinson. Tom Robinson was a black man in Macomb County. He was poor, and he would do what he had to do to get money for his family, especially since he was disabled, since he was injured when he was a child. Aunt Alexandria is the sister of Atticus Finch, known as the aunt of both Jem and Scout. And just a little quick thing, she tries to get Scout to be more feminine because Scout is a tomboy. So she says, you know what, I want you to wear dresses. So that's her attempt. The neighbors of the Finch family have a really big role in what happens, because they do symbolize many things. A lot of things do happen to them throughout the courses of the years, during the summer, during the winter. So they do really have an effect on the novel, and I will get into detail soon. So it starts off in the first chapter with Scout talking to us about how her brother Jem broke his elbow, his left elbow. And one of his main concerns was whether he was going to be able to play football ever again or not. He still plays, despite that one arm was smaller than the other. He still managed to play. He still managed to do what he was doing. Atticus, the father, is a lawyer. And he does, like I said, one of the main importances of Atticus is his kids' education. He really wants for them to get somewhere in their lives. So Dill comes into the picture in the first chapter, and like I said, he does meet Scout and Jem, and they were interested about these rumors that they were hearing about Boo Radley, because Boo Radley happened to be Jem and Scout's neighbor. So they had heard many rumors that Boo had stabbed his father with a pair of scissors in the leg, that their house was haunted, that he had never came out after the stabbing, but Boo wasn't charged for, wanting to maybe kill his father. Whatever it was his intentions were, he wasn't charged because the father didn't want him to be. But they did say that, Mr. and Mrs. Radley were seen outside of the house, but never did the kids once see Boo Radley. And one of the main things that they wanted to do was see him. One day they decided to go into the yard of Boo Radley to go kind of sneak into the house. And it was at night. And Boo has a brother, which is Nathan. And Nathan did hear somebody on the porch, wherever it was that the kids were at. He did hear somebody, and he loaded his gun and he shot. Jem lost his pants. While going home, the kids found 3 items. Those items were chewing gum, pennies, and soap that was carved into a little boy and a little girl that actually looked like Scout and Jem. They didn't know who it was that was leaving those gifts, so they kind of left like a little note saying, I guess, like, hey, thanks for whatever it is, or who are you? And as the months followed, in the winter, one of their neighbors, their house is burned down, and the kids were in the freezing cold. It was placed a blanket over Scout, and when Scout went home, her father asked her whose blanket that belonged to, and she didn't even realize it until her father had asked her. So they could only infer that more than likely it was Boo Radley. that did that, and could only infer that Boo Radley was the one that was giving them those gifts. This next part is kind of where the book is going at its climax. I'm really not going to go into grave detail about it because, like I said, I didn't really want to spoil it, but just a little, like a summary that I am giving. Tom Robinson was accused of doing something to Mayella Ewell. I will not say what, but he was accused of doing something to Mayella Ewell, and being a black man and her being a white woman. They did take it to court. Atticus, being the lawyer, did take the case, and his kids were taunted and talked about a lot, by other people from the community. And even their own family members would say stuff about him, like, oh, you're ruining the Finch's name, you're doing this. And, both Jem and Scout lost their temper to their neighbors, to their family, and to other people. And it would get really bad. Jem ended up having to help one of the neighbors because he had cut off her flowers. Okay, now I'm going to be answering some questions that I have. The first question, is there a specific topic that the book deals with? Like I did say, the book was written, by Scout, and she was the one that was telling her story, about what she would witness, what was happening to her father, what was happening in her community, in her county, and how she would talk to us about how Atticus tried to change, like I did say, the injustices that was going on throughout the community, especially in the case that he decided to say yes to. Like I did say, he did say yes. He, a white man, said yes to defending a black man, to show that he was innocent of all charges that were pressed against him. So, a specific topic, it's just, of racial injustices. From what point of view is the work written? It was written in, like I did say, Scout's point of view, so I want to say it was first point of view. What do you like or dislike about the book's writing style? I don't really dislike anything about the writing style. I believe that the book was really detailed, not to a point where, you would get exhausted because she just kept going on and on and on. No, but she would give you this one sentence, 2 sentences at the most or something, and she would give you, it's like if you knew the person already. Did the book affect you at all? Yes, in a positive way. Yes, it did affect me, because it made me look up to Atticus. It made me look up to what he was doing, what he tried to change within the county, and he was just a good person. And it just was like, hey, maybe it motivated me to do something different within my society, to try something different, to would you recommend this book to others? If yes, why? Yes, I recommend it to you guys, to anybody that watches this, because it's a book, like I did say, it's a classic book. It's a book that will have a great positive effect on you. It's gonna be one of those that you'll cry and you'll be happy in one chapter. You're gonna have this heartbreaking sensation, and then you're gonna feel your heart so warm. It doesn't leave you hanging. You're always gonna want to keep reading, and you're not gonna want to put this book down because of how, the way that Harper Lee wrote the book, the way that she explained, the way that she talked about the characters, the way that she showed Scout's, curiosity, the way she showed her love, her affection, or maybe her dislike, her hatred, not just in Scout, but in the other characters. It was just something so magnificent that I would recommend this book to anybody. Well, thank you guys for watching my first ever book review on To Kill a Mockingbird. And I really, like I did say, I really do recommend for you guys to read it. And then if you'd like, watch the movie, because it's amazing. It's one of those that I will never forget. It's one of those that it will always have an impact. It's gonna always be, in my mind as a positive note, and it's just a good reader, a good reader, and you should just go out there, read it. Read a good book.